Okay, perfect. Thank you everybody for being here, and the hundreds of thousands listening via WebEx or through our audio to city. Welcome. We'll call the meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda is the any declarations of conflict. No?
Greg, I have one for number 5, Murchison Lane.
Okay, Murchison Lane. Is that you, Shallon?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we get to Murchison Lane, Shallon, you can just, like I said, probably listen on, but just don't offer any opinion or vote.
Okay.
All right, approval of the agenda, please, for Monday, June 1st, today's meeting.
I'll move it.
Okay, moved.
Second, Hazel.
Thank you. Is everyone in favor?
Favor? Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none. Perfect. Adoption of the minutes from the planning board meeting on Thursday, May 27th.
I'll move.
Okay, move. Thank you. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Bobby.
thank you. Is everyone in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? I'll just assume if I hear no opposed that everyone's in favor. Perfect. So was there any business arising from those minutes? All right, hearing none. So before we get into the reports, what I'm going to ask planning or everyone here to do, if everyone can just mute their microphones while the presenter is presenting, that way we don't get any background noise, and then everyone can hear properly. That would be great. Once I open up the floor, I will then have you guys can unmute and ask any questions that you may have. Just looking to my left here, so there is one small quick agenda change. It's not so much a change in the agenda, just the numbering. So we're going to move number 3, which is lot 19-1 Sherwood Road. From number 3, we're going to just move to number 2 because we do have the applicant in the planning board right now, the office, kind of waiting there until he has an opportunity to present. So we're going to move 3 to 2, if that's okay with everyone. All right. With that, again, if everyone can go on mute, and we'll start off with 1, which is a variance. Greg, you're up for 385 Queen Street.
Yeah, so this is a application for 385 Queen. It's for 3 variances. They are 2. And the variances are required in order to construct an 8-unit apartment building, 2 of which would be affordable dwelling units. So the applicant has indicated that there is an existing duplex on the property, and that will remain. So in total, there'll be 2 buildings for a total of 10 units. In order to construct the 8-unit apartment building, the 3 variances would be the required flankage yard variance from 19.7 feet to 10 feet. This is a 49.24% major variance. Second would be the required rear yard setback from 19.7 to 10 feet. And the third would be a request for the lot frontage from 98.4 feet to 94.1. So this is a 4% minor variance. The existing duplex on the corner, Queen and Costello. For reference, it is in the R3 zone. It is adjacent to properties in the R2 zone along Costello Lane, but for the most part, Queen Street is zoned R3. There is an 8-unit townhouse across the street at 382 to 394 Queen Street. And at 379 Queen Street on the corner of Douglas and Queen, it is a mixed-use building. So council passed a resolution in 2016 to consolidate these 2 lots. So at one point, this property outlined in black there was 2 properties. In 2016, they were approved to be 1. We sent out letters to the property owners within 100 meters, and we received 3 letters of opposition and 1 letter of support. So I'll just go through some of the concerns that were raised. The density, that 8 units would be too much. The proposal does not fit in with the community kind of thing. So the applicant, based upon lot area, is meeting the required lot area calculations. However, In order to be eligible for an apartment building in the R3 zone on a corner lot, you need 98.4 feet. They only have 94.1, so that is the minor variance to lot frontage. The other two, other issues that were raised include the variances are too much of an issue. The parking, there's not enough room for parking, and it's already a busy street. There's kids playing on the street, and it wouldn't be safe to add that many vehicles. The entrance should be off Queen Street, not Costello. Again, these are what people are saying in the letters of opposition. The concerns about waste containers, recycle bins, etc. So again, it's all in the report for you to read through. The applicant provided this preliminary site plan that you can see, and it does show the required parking is being satisfied, but again, it's not a proper survey plan, so that survey plan would have to be provided to make sure that they are meeting the requirements. You can see the proposed building's 29.5 feet by 73 feet, and the two variances are, this is the rear yard, 10 feet, and this is the flankage yard, 10 feet. So in our bylaw, we allow you to basically be in line with other houses on the street on the front yard. So that does not apply to the flankage yard in our bylaw. However, you can see that the other houses along Costello are quite close to Costello. So the proposed apartment dwelling would just be in line. If the bylaw read the same for the front yard as it did the flankage yard, there wouldn't be a need for a variance. So staff are recommending that variance get approved. They're also recommending that the lot frontage be approved. However, staff are recommending that the rear yard variance not be approved due to the proximity of the existing single attached dwelling, and the proposed apartment building would be considerably larger in scale, 10 feet from the property line, and would have a negative impact on the adjacent property owner. So staff are recommending rejection of the rear yard variance, approval of the flankage yard variance, and approval of the frontage variance, or lot frontage variance. So I can answer any questions you have, and the applicant is on the line as well to answer questions as well. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Greg. The applicant, is it Ryan? Are you on the line, Ryan?
Yes, it's Riley.
Hey, Ryan. Riley, sorry.
Riley.
Sorry, Riley. Welcome. You heard the presentation. Is there anything that you would like to add to that before taking any questions?
Thank you. Yes, we did have the lot surveyed, and the drafter that I hired to draft this site plan did draft it based off the survey, so it should be fairly accurate. We will proceed with engineers, whenever it comes to getting the actual permits. But other than that, no, I have nothing to add.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, folks, does anyone have any questions for Riley or for our planning staff? If you do, just state your name, so that way it's easier for the record, and then ask the question.
It's okay. I'm just trying to, I did also, before I read all through the report, kind of have some concerns with the parking. There is room, is there? Plus 11 parking spaces that you're required to have?
Yes, there is one unit or one parking space per unit, plus one additional handicap parking space. And it is also, like, I chose to come off the Costello street because it is a dead end street that has very little traffic. I live right beside this proposed building, so I see Costello Street being traveled like all the time, and it is very quiet. So
it's quiet. You have 10 visitors visiting where there's no parking. That's all. I'm just trying to figure out how the parking thing will work, right?
I think just to add to it, the requirement in the bylaw is one space per unit and then one mobility space, so they are meeting it. Our bylaw doesn't address visitor parking, maybe it should, but the other thing I would note is you kind of see the entrance on a bit of an angle, and that is done to achieve the required 50-foot distance from the corner of the property so that you don't have any driveways right on the corner of Queen Street and Costello. So
Right.
that is why it's tilted a bit.
Yeah, okay, I see that better now. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McCabe. Is there any other questions or comments for staff or for the applicant?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's Bobby here.
Go ahead, Bobby.
I took a drive down yesterday and tried to envision the apartment building there. It looks like it would be very tight. The parking, you mentioned getting rid of a deck there at the back of the existing house, but there's also a fire escape there. What does that do to the fire escape?
If you're speaking with me, I believe those patios just come off the dining rooms. So I think the current fire laws, as long as you have egress windows in every bedroom, I think once we do take off them patios, there will be no issues when it comes to keeping the existing building, you know, up to fire code regulations.
And at the time of a permit, if they were removing the fire escape or decks, it would have to go through the building inspector. So if there was a requirement for something, I mean, they would have their fingerprints on it before any permit got issued for the apartment building.
Yep.
And where would you pile the snow?
That's a good question, but I mean, we would have a 10-foot, the 10-foot beside the building there, and I guess we could just try to push it back there, or on each side of the parking street, each side of the parking near Costello.
I would assume that if it got too high, that you can just kind of haul it away via dump truck or something, if that's the case.
Yeah, we have some buildings here in Charlottetown and Summerside, and sometimes it gets tight, but each building is, you know, you got to deal with it in each individual case. So it would be the same thing here.
Greg, it's Basil Hambley.
Yes, Basil.
On the rear setback, from 19.7 down to 10 feet, you said that you would prefer that not be approved?
Yes,
Is there a way to
staff
move the
are-
building up to allow that 19 feet?
Yeah, staff are recommending that it not be approved. If the 19.7 was met, either the building would have to be reduced by 9.7 feet, or the parking lot, I guess, get a little tighter. And the problem with that is the 22-foot drive aisle is a requirement. So with the existing building being there, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. So with it would be pretty difficult to move the apartment building. So I think the only resolution in staff's opinion would be if it was rejected, then the building would have to be approximately 20 feet wide.
Yes, and that's right, Greg. That would be the solution that we would come up with. And what that would mean is we would just end up building 8 units, or potentially just 6 units without the affordable, and they would just be smaller units. So that's why I was really looking for both variances, the flankage yard and the rear yard, to get approved, simply to have more comfortable units.
But this still allows you, Riley, to have decent sized units, right? Even if this one variance was rejected and the other 2 were approved?
I would have to, I think we would go ahead with it. I mean, I don't think they would be considered micro units by any means, but they would definitely be getting smaller than, you know, your average comfortable sized units.
So, Greg Morrison, just quickly again go through why we would why we're looking to reject one but approve the other 2. Just more the rejection of the other.
Yeah, well, I think the minor variance to me, it's zoned R3. It is fairly minor in nature to allow an apartment building at all. So
Yeah.
staff feel that one's pretty straightforward. A lot of official plan amendments that would support it. The one on Costello really is aligning with existing buildings on the street. Just the way the bylaw is written, it doesn't include flankage yard, just front yard. So So staff feel that that's fair to go to 10 feet, and then the 10-foot rear yard. I guess the reason for that is because it is adjacent to existing single detached dwelling that, as you can see, has a minimal setback, if any. Putting it an 8-unit apartment building on the property would be 10 feet from the property line would be pretty tight and may have negative impacts. So the whole idea of the official plan is to support density without compromising existing single attached neighborhoods, and we always use the word harmonious development. So while obviously apartment building is different than a single attached dwelling, it's zoned correctly, and if it was meeting the requirements of the setback, it would have less of a physical impact on single attached dwelling next to it.
Okay, no, fair enough. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for planning staff or for the applicant?
It is a 2-story building, Riley?
We're actually looking at doing 3 stories, keeping it under 49 feet as R3 allows.
Okay.
And there is a 6-foot fence right now that is separating the rear yard with the adjacent property that would be maintained, and the green space around the building would also be landscaped and maintained, which would it might help not make it look so big and so dense. Like in 10 feet of landscaped grass can be enough, I feel, to separate the 2 buildings and the 2 properties.
Riley, is there any trees between where you're proposing to put your apartment complex and the homes that are adjacent?
Yes, there are some trees along the line. Can't quite see it, but the line that's it's not the rear and it's not the Costello line, but it's the other side yard.
Okay.
That I am removing. I have plans to remove, and I've always had plans to remove them.
To remove the trees. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there an appetite on your behalf to, for, again, other than the fence, to offer some buffering, if you will, for the homes that are adjacent? Would there be an appetite on your behalf to maybe plant some trees or something to help with the landscaping a bit?
Yes, there is, and that was an idea that we had. Right now, there is a fence that goes around the entire parcel of land, and we were planning to remove all the overgrown trees and then plant hedges or shrubs, and then eventually remove the fence entirely.
Okay.
So it would give privacy on every side of the property. And it'd be nice for the new tenants of the new building, but it'd also be nice for the existing homeowners, which I am one of them right now. I am exactly beside this property, and I know how it will affect my house that I'm living in right now. So I'm treating them concerns, the concerns of other neighbors that may be around this property and this development.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments for Riley while we have him here, or for planning staff?
It's Rosemary. I just had one question, Greg.
Sure.
I'm wondering, what is the square footage of your proposed units if you go with 8 versus what the square footage would be if you have to go with fewer units?
Yes, I'll see if I have it right off hand here. But I know if all variances were approved, we would be looking at 800 square foot per unit to about 850 square foot per unit, which would be acceptable for 1 and 2 bedroom construction. Yeah. And it would just be significantly smaller. I don't have the numbers with me right now.
So you're thinking maybe six normal units in around 850 and maybe a couple of micro apartments.
Yeah, but even just one bedrooms, even just, tighter one bedrooms. I don't think we want to get into the micro or studio. We want to have just nice one bedrooms and two bedrooms.
Okay, does that answer your question, Rosemary?
It does, Greg. Thank you. Yeah, I have to ask about the trees. What condition are the trees in that you're talking about cutting down?
They are leaning all over the neighbors' properties. So they would be the neighbors on the side yard. And they're in really bad shape in the sense that they're already leaning over the garages of my neighbors. So they've just been overgrown and not maintained for the last number of years.
Okay, thank you.
So Riley, my advice is before, like I said, if this thing gets approved, certainly check the city about tree removal before going ahead with the city, before moving them or taking them down, just because there are rules in place, and would hate to see you get caught with doing something and getting fined or.
Yeah,
I touch base with them. That's all.
Yes, I did that, and I have a letter from the city.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, if there's none, we're going to need a motion from someone. Not everybody at once.
It's Rosemary, and I move accepting the recommendation by staff to approve two variances and reject the rear one.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept staff recommendation to approve two variances and rejecting the one. Is there anyone to second that?
I would second that. Bobby.
Okay, Bobby, thank you. Yeah, so moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Any other questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm going to ask, is there anyone opposed?
Yeah, I am. I just think it's too much of a development for that little piece of land. So.
Okay, so okay, thank you, Councillor Duran. Is there anybody other than Councillor Duran opposed to this? Because if you're not opposed, I'll assume that you are in favor. Okay, hearing none, so motion is carried. Thank you, Riley, for the information, and this goes to council for next week, and council will vote on this next week, Riley, and you should know your answer by then.
Okay, thank you, everyone who participated.
Good evening.
Thank you. I'll log off.
All right, folks, so we're going to do number 3, I believe, first. We're going to move 3 down to number 2 spot. And I'm trying to flip through all my screens here, so just bear with me. So the lot 19, 1 on Sherwood Road. Robert, whenever you're ready, the screen is yours, and I'd ask everyone to mute until Robert's done. Thank you. You ready to go, Robert?
He's trying to talk there, but it's not coming through. Just give him a second.
So we're doing lot 21 and lot 3
Yeah. Robert, you are unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can. Okay, so basically the floor is yours, so go ahead and present.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone see the presentation right now? I'm sharing it. Sherwood Road, PID 1107-200 and PID 145961.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So the application before you tonight is the request to proceed to public meeting in order to change the official plan designation from the comprehensive planning area to an industrial designation, as well as to rezone the properties from comprehensive development area to the business park industrial, which is the M3 zone. The applicant is also proposing a lot consolidation as part of this application, this official plan and rezoning application. So the large parcel PID 1107-200 is currently split zoned in M3. So the eastern half portion is M3 and the remainder is CDA. And so the applicant's proposing on changing the official plan designation as well as the zoning to M3 industrial. And that's in order to accommodate two developments. The one development would be Fitzgerald and Snow's offices with a warehouse storage component. So that would be lot 19-1B on the site plan in front of you. And then lot 19-1A would be a transport truck terminal with office space. So currently the applicant is here. He can answer any questions that the board members might have in regards to the application. Staff would note that the applicant is planning on submitting a building permit application for the portion of the lot that's zoned industrial business park, which is the M3 zone. So that would be the Fitzgerald and Snow office space, as well as the warehouse building for storage of their equipment. So since that portion of the lot already has the M3 zone attached to it, staff would be willing to accept a building permit application in order for that half of the property, which is currently zoned, to be developed. So in fact, the request to change the official plan designation as well as the zoning would pertain completely to the other half of the lot, the western portion of the lot, identified on the site plan as 19-1A, which would be the transport truck terminal. So with that, again, this is just a request to proceed to public hearing, to a public meeting, to receive comments on the proposal. And I'm here to answer any questions, and so is the applicant. He is here as well to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
All right, Robert, thank you. So the applicant is, I don't have a name here, so I apologize.
Chris from Fitzgerald and Snow.
It's Chris? Okay. Chris, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Greg. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for being here. Is there anything that you want to add for planning board right now before there's any questions?
No, not really. Like, I think it's, from what I can see, probably just a formality that I saw, because the development, which is for the zone, that Landsat zone CDA to M3, is more or less fits right in with the rest of the development on the rest of the street. So, no, I don't really have anything to add, but I answer any questions anyone will have.
Okay, no, perfect. Thank you. All right, folks, any questions? So this is, again, to go to a public consultation. Yeah, any questions from the board?
Greg?
Yes.
Jason, I'm just trying to get my bearing here, Greg. I'm trying to look at it on my computer here.
Sure.
What's the building in front of the blue square? Like what's already there?
The green area with the front of the parking lot? I don't know if anything's there, is there?
There's nothing there. The land's completely vacant.
It looks like on I can't even see the PID number. So I'm seeing like an orange square PID 110-7200, and then there's another blue square PID 145961. Right in front of the 145961, it looks like there's a building fronting onto Sherwood Road.
Through the chair to
Island EMS.
That's EMS.
That's Island EMS?
That's Island EMS, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You know where we're talking now, Jace?
Yeah, no, there wasn't enough in the map to get the bearings.
Fair enough. All right, any other questions or comments?
It's Rosemary Gregg, and I just had a question for Robert, and wondering what are the implications of changing the zoning to an M3 for development down the road?
Through the chair to the board member. So the implications of changing the zone from a CDA to an M3 zone would effectively allow and open up those lands to be developed for any land use that's included within the M3 business park industrial zone. So effectively, part of the reason a CDA zone exists is so that a comprehensive plan for that area is developed in order to avoid fragmentation of development, so we have orderly and good development. In this case, the applicant is proposing and coming in with effectively two concepts. One concept, again, is to develop the construction offices and warehouse building for equipment on the eastern half, and then the other half would then be constructed, I believe, by the applicant for another industrial-like business that revolves around the transport, truck repair, and maintenance. Yeah.
So, Robert, just to clarify, and I've forgotten, but does an M3 zone not allow something like a concrete plant?
That would be the M2 zone.
That's M2, not M3.
Yes, that's correct. And currently, that asphalt concrete plant is still being upheld in Iraq, so we're still going to an appeal on that zone amendment. So that hasn't been officially adopted, but the chair is correct. If Iraq did rule in favor of the city, that concrete plant would be located in the M2, which is the heavy industrial zone.
But this is M3 we're talking about.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, Robert, just to follow up on Rosemary's question, I guess, and add a little bit more substance to it, is that what's being proposed or we're looking at today could be accomplished through a CDA zone as well, right?
Theoretically, if the applicant like a comprehensive development plan that would show how those lots would be developed, you could proceed under that direction. However, staff would more recommend that the zone be changed to M3 zone in order to fit the other M3 zone that's located along Sherwood Road, just to have a uniformity of land use along that area. And it does then open up for those lands to be strictly developed as a business park industrial type uses.
Okay, no, thank you. Right, any other comments or questions from the board? Again, this is to go to a public meeting.
Basil, did we do anything before in the last 6 months maybe with that parcel number 145961? I thought that was that had come before us in, like I said, in the last 6 months to join. I thought it was joining on with the parcel that's in front of the property.
Was, but they passed on it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, it's Chris here. So with talking to Irving Frizzle, yes, I believe, who's the owner of that 145961, there was at one point going to be a survey was done, but it was never completed, and he did talk to them and about conjoining the two lots, but EMS wasn't in a position or was interested in that land anymore. So I presently have a verbal or a deal, a legal deal with.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Basil?
Yes, it does.
Okay, perfect. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, if there's none, does anyone want to put a motion on the floor? Again, it's to go to a public meeting.
Greg, it's Shallon. I will recommend that we accept staff's recommendation to go to a public meeting.
Okay, thank you, Shallon. So we have a motion on the floor to go to a public meeting. Anyone second that? Okay, thank you, Reg. All right, is there any further comments or any questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? All right, is there anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none, so motion is carried. All right, thank you, Chris, for being here. Enjoy the rest of the evening. It's looks like it's nice out. While we are stuck in our offices at home, some in our bedrooms. All right, moving on to the next application. So we're going to back up just a little bit. We're going to go to number 2 under the variances, which is John Yo Drive. Robert, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. Everyone can mute if you are not talking. Thank you. Robert, do you need some elevator music, Robert?
Sorry, I was just letting Chris out of our office.
Gotcha. I was going to say if you needed like a bit of a song and dance or something, just something to keep everyone entertained. I would ask Chris Fournier to step up to the table. But...
All right. Okay, so the next application is for a vacant parcel of land located on John Yo Drive. The request is for a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback from 7.5 meters, which is 24.6 feet, to 3 meters, 9.8 feet, in order to construct a commercial plaza and a warehouse. The subject land is highlighted here, in which would contain those developments and in which the variance is being applied for. This is just another aerial shot, treed, relatively flat and vacant. I will note, though, that there is an existing APM commercial office plaza that is located directly west of the subject property, and APM is the applicant. That's the owner who's also applying for the rear yard reduction. So that's the existing building that's actually fully constructed now. And then this is the site plan showing the proposed development and the reduction of the rear yard. The purpose of the reduction to the rear yard setback requirements is basically to align the proposed business mall and the warehouse with that of the existing business commercial mall development that's located at 21 John Yo Drive, which is those existing APM commercial plaza. So essentially, when this went through application of subdivision and they applied for a permit initially, 21 John Yo Drive didn't require a variance to reduce the rear yard because of its location as a corner lot. In this instance, the zoning bylaw dictates that the lesser frontage of the two, when it abuts two streets, is the front yard. So in fact, we would have 21 John Yo Drive, the front yard would be facing Malpec, while we would have John Yo Drive being a flankage yard, and to be basically a flankage exterior side yard. So when they subdivided that land off, they've effectively created the subject property as an interior lot. And so then just the way that the lot layout resides, you would have the front yard being on John Yo Drive, and therefore would automatically make the rear yard being to the north of the property, and in which they're asking for the reduction of the variance. So bearing in mind that the reduction in the variance is just to align the development along that street, staff sees no concerns in regards with the proposed variance, and would recommend approval of the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, it looks like the buildings are perfectly aligned from this picture, so it kind of seems like common sense, but that's just me. I'm not a planner. Any questions or comments? hearing none, if anybody has a motion they want to put on the floor, they can. Without me forcing anyone's arms.
I would move we recommend approval for the variance.
Thank you, Bobby. So we have a motion on the floor to accept staff's recommendation for the variances. Reg has his hand up. Second it. Thank you very much. Is there any further conversation? Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, is there anyone opposed? All right, no one opposed, so we're assuming it's unanimous in favor. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to number 4 now, which is the lot on the corner of St. Peter's Road and Ralden Avenue. And Laurel, are you there?
Yeah. Just my power ready.
Okay, so if everyone can mute again, that'd be great. And Laurel, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and proceed.
Okay. So, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so this is a request to amend the future land use map from medium density residential to commercial and to rezone the property located on the corner of St. Peter's Road and Ralden Avenue from R3 medium density residential to mixed use corridor zone. This is the property, and this is the actual location of the property. So it's on the corner of Ralden, St. Peter's Road. It has some mixed residential around it. So surrounding land uses to the north is land zoned R2 and mixed use corridor. To the east is mixed use corridor zone land and the arterial highway. To the south is St. Peter's Road and some R3 medium density residential located on the opposite side of the road. And to the west is Ralden Avenue with some more R3 zone land. So the subject property is approximately a half of an acre. It's currently zoned R3, and the applicant, who is the government of PEI, are proposing to rezone the land to mixed-use corridor to facilitate road construction. They are, I want to flip to this. So with the road widening, approximately 303 meters squared will be taken from the Needs property right here, and about 237 meters squared of road frontage will be taken from the subject property. So the acquisition of land will result in a reduction of parking for the Needs store, and as well, the Needs store will be limited to a write-in only egress to be located off of St. Peter's Road, and they will be able to access onto Ralden Avenue both in and out. For safety reasons, the Department of Transportation is eliminating that egress onto St. Peter's Road, and the applicant has indicated they're applying for the rezoning on behalf of the property owner because of the parking and access and egress to the Needs store will have to be relocated onto that corner. So there has been 3 applications by Sobeys for this property in the past. There was one in 1999 and up to 2002. I believe there was one in 2001, 2002. So those applications were to rezone the property from residential to commercial. And the purpose of those rezoning requests were to construct a new Needs store and to build a Tim Hortons drive-through as well. So in 1999, the property was rezoned, the property was zoned R2, low density residential, and appears that it might have been rezoned to R3 medium density residential during amalgamation. In 1999, Sobeys withdrew their application. And we were not able to determine why they withdrew the application because there was no reason given in the file. Sobeys didn't give a reason why they were withdrawing at that time. There was just a letter provided. In 2001, Sobeys reapplied to rezone the property from R3 to mixed-use corridor and to consolidate both properties, construct the needs store and the Tim Hortons drive-through. Access and egress to the site at that time was to be off of St. Peter's Road, and the application was recommended to proceed to public consultation. However, it does appear that there was a good deal of opposition to the proposal at that time. Sobeys asked for a deferral of their application so that they could address some of the public's concerns. And then in July of 2002, they come back with an amended plan, and the site plan was forwarded to the Provincial Department of Transportation. At that time, the province had several concerns regarding traffic, and although that Sobeys provided a traffic study, the province felt that the traffic numbers projected in the study for the drive-through were low. So given the public's concerns and the concerns regarding traffic, the application to rezone at that time was rejected. So there is no, currently with this application, there isn't a application to consolidate those two properties. They've just asked to rezone this property on the corner. However, the current zoning bylaw does not allow for off-lot parking. Therefore, if the requested parking can be accommodated on the needs property at 253 St. Peter's Road, then a consolidation would be required if it can't be accommodated there. So parking requirements in the bylaw are 2 spaces for the first 215 square feet of floor area and 1 for additional space for each 215 square feet of floor area. So we did a very rough calculation of the building footprint, and it estimates that approximately 14 parking spaces are required for the current store on the needs property. So counting existing parking, we did that by looking at the aerial view, or not the aerial view, the picture that's on Google Maps. You can see the parking lot is quite large, and we did count the parking, and it looks like that those parking spaces could be accommodated on site now. So we don't think that a consolidation is required. However, although there was a previous application 18 to 20 years ago, we still feel there may be concerns from the residents along Alden Avenue about potential expansion and intensification of the needs store. And if the city were to approve a rezoning for this lot consolidation, it would require council's approval. So if the consolidation is not required to meet the required parking, it would be appropriate to leave the properties as separate lots until a more concrete plan is presented for both sites for council to review. And if rezoned, council could also require a development agreement outlining the uses on the property. Another option, which staff looked at, would be to rezone the property to parking, which would only allow the property to be used for parking commercial purposes. But this would limit the uses on the property. It's currently zoned R3, so if we rezoned it to parking, it would be considered a down zoning because you wouldn't be able to construct half the uses that you could in the R3 zone under the parking zone. So this property, although it sits on the fringe of a residential neighborhood, the board must also consider that if it is consolidated, it's positioned on the corner of 2 very busy arterial roads, the Charlottetown Bypass and St. Peter's Road. And there are also scattered commercial uses in the area. Convenience store is considered a support use for a neighborhood, and staff has examined sections in the official plan, and the official plan identifies the area between Sherwood Shopping Center and the former DN rail bed as an area for commercial growth within the city. It doesn't identify this area and any area north of the Sherwood Shopping Center. So basically, the official plan doesn't support scattered commercial development throughout the city. However, the official plan considers that neighborhoods require commercial support services located within them, and there's some sections in the official plan specifically section 3.2, sustaining Charlottetown's neighborhoods, that talks about having commercial uses that support neighborhoods. So within the report, staff has included a summary of the application's positive attributes, neutral attributes, and shortcomings, and they're in the report for your reference. But however, in conclusion, staff, given the proximity of this property to residential development, we do have concerns that potential future development of this property may impact adjacent residential properties, and residents may have concerns regarding traffic accessing and egressing on Ralden Avenue. However, the site is located on a corner lot along St. Peter's Road, which is a busy arterial street, and if it's consolidated with PID number 396994, it will also share frontage on the arterial highway. The province of PEI has initiated the rezoning application for the purpose of making improvements to St. Peter's Road, and those improvements will increase safety and traffic efficiency, and those are some of the things that were talked about when we did do the East Royalty plan and the traffic analysis. So staff does have concerns with we don't have concerns with the road work that the province is undertaking. However, any additional future development by the property owner should be dealt with through a separate application. If the property owner does decide in the future to redevelop the site, a lot consolidation requiring council approval would be required. And if development rights were restricted on the property through a development agreement or by a rezoning to parking, a public process would be required for future development. So staff recognizes that future development of the site may provide additional support services to the neighborhood, but we also feel that residents should have an opportunity to comment on that proposal. Due to our concerns for possible future intensification of the site, we're outlining 4 options the board can consider when they was dealing with this application. So it can be rezoned to MEC with no restrictions placed on the rezoning. It can be rezoned with restrictions on the rezoning through a development agreement. It could be rezoned to parking only, or the rezoning application could be denied. Staff are encouraging planning board at this time to recommend to approve the request to proceed to public consultation, basically to gauge the public's opinion. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Laurel. My eyes are crossed here, trying to understand all that.
I know it's a bit of a complicated application with the lot consolidation in play.
So really, the goal here is to really widen the road from the province's perspective, and again, they're going to then have the parking lot exit from the Need store out onto Ralden instead of St. Peter's Road. And right the applicant say, yeah. So the applicant did. They are proposing that we turn or rezone that other property that's adjacent to the Needs, the one that your cursor's on now, to parking.
No, they're proposing mixed-use corridor, but given the history on it, staff do have concerns about rezoning to mixed-use corridor. So that's why we're saying if we do rezone it to mixed-use corridor, then it would have to have restrictions on the rezoning through a development agreement, or we could propose that they rezone it to parking. Now, I'm not sure what the province are the applicants on this, and I think they have had some discussions with Sobeys on this, and I think that may be one of the reasons why the mixed-use corridor was looked at, but I'm not sure. They haven't applied for a lot consolidation, which you would need the lot consolidation to expand on that site, because you would need both properties to create a larger store.
So what?
And
so
with the road construction, they're not. The province doesn't want to have any access onto St. Peter's Road, so it's basically a right in, and then access and egress would be onto Ralden.
Okay, so aside from the road construction, what I think most people probably would think is beneficial, I guess what do we need to make sure that we do tonight and at council to protect the residents in that area from having something kind of put on them without having further input on that other piece of property. Because council should have a say in what goes there in the future, not surprise the residents. Because again, there's no plan. Even if we do go to a public meeting, there's really no plan for them to see what's going there, and I think that's unfair to the residents.
Exactly.
So we just want to make sure that whatever we do it protects that property, and that if there's a future use for that property, that they would have to come back through the process. That way, the public sees it and has a say.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's
it was 18, 20 years ago that this application went to public consultation, but I mean, it is a low density neighborhood. There is some R3 zoning, but I mean, my guess is the public's opinion hasn't changed in that amount of time with regards to a drive-through or a more intensive use. But I think staff's opinion is at least to take it to the public so we can find out for sure. And I mean, we are dealing with road control.
I know, but my only problem going back to the public, it's one thing for the road, but to take it back to the public and show them nothing. I think it has the potential of working people up, showing up to a meeting and them asking what could go there, and then us, basically give them the fear of God that this could go there, this could go, but nothing's proposed to go there. That's my fear to the public at this point.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So that's why I'm suggesting we would have to have either a development agreement in place, or we could talk to the applicants and broach the parking.
So if we put a development agreement in place, Laurel, for that piece, that makes sure that any future use or proposed use for that land has to come through council. Does this application for the roadway, the road work that's supposed to be done, does that still have to come through public? Or can that be done? Can that be done without coming? It does. Okay.
Well, yes, it does have to go to the public because they're rezoning that corner lot, and their reason for rezoning that corner lot is they claim that it's R3 right now, so you can't put parking on an R3 lot for an adjoining business, and you wouldn't be able to use it as an access for the adjoining business. So, because we did eliminate off-lot parking in the bylaw.
Okay. So we can put something in place to protect the city and the residents.
Well, I think if we're going to approve a rezoning to MUC, we would have to restrict that rezoning to those specific uses.
And who's going to identify the specific uses?
Well, we would have to during the approval when it comes back to planning board. So we would limit it to parking and access. So essentially, it's basically the same as a parking zone.
Okay. Okay, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Then wouldn't it be recommended to go to number 3, rezone it to a parking now?
That is one. Yeah, I mean, that's why we put it in there. It's definitely an option. However, their application was for MUC, so we had to take it through with the MUC proposal. So, I mean, we could talk to the applicant after the board makes a decision and see if they would, alter their application to proceed to an amendment to parking.
Go ahead, Shalyn.
I'm just wondering, could we ask for a more detailed proposal, or defer until there's something?
They don't have a proposal at this time, Shalyn, because it's basically the province is asking for the rezoning because they need that land to facilitate road work, which they plan to do this summer. So there's two things that would limit this. If we did rezone it, we're not approving a lot consolidation at this time. And we could put restrictions on the rezoning if we did rezone it to MUC. So with a lot consolidation, they have to come back to planning board and council for approval for that lot consolidation in order to expand.
Yeah, but can they put, like, so if we approve that as a mixed use corridor, can they put, can they make that like parking without coming back to us, or?
No, either way, if they want to go from R3 to either parking or mixed use corridor, they have to rezone the property.
Yeah, I'm just I guess I'm wondering, like, I kind of don't want to make it a parking corner lot either without sort of knowing what will be done there, I guess is my concern.
Well, they can't use that lot for parking for the store unless it's rezoned, because it's an R3 lot, so the bylaw doesn't allow off-lot parking, and it's also an R3 lot, so you can't use it as a parking lot for a commercial business without either rezoning it to mixed-use corridor or parking.
So they can't really use it for anything? Am I understanding that right? Like, if we rezone that to mixed-use corridor, they'd still have to come back regardless?
If we rezone it to mixed-use corridor, they could develop it some form of commercial use on that lot as it is. But if they wanted to expand the needs store and they were going to look to put a drive-through like they proposed in 2000, then they would have to come back, because you would need to consolidate those two pieces of property to make a larger lot.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
I personally think they're creating more work than they probably need to by not having some kind of plan for that. Because at the end, if you're looking to rezone without a plan, you're going to have people show up, I think, and be upset at the what ifs. So I would love to see some kind of plan for the future, what they're hoping to put there, and I'm sure the public would love to see it too, or I get a sneaky suspicion that the public meeting's not going to go really well. It's just based on the last 5.5 years, but I digress. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I know that intersection really well, and to leave it, like, to make it mixed use and surprise the residents is not something I'd want. The best I would want to do is parking and let them make their decision. I know the province wants that piece of land because it's a very busy intersection, but you don't want anything like a drive-through on that corner anywhere near there.
Yeah, I think we would definitely have concerns with that. It would definitely be a development that would warrant a traffic study for sure.
All right, yeah.
And that just ask a question, because I mean, the government can go in, like the government is not depending on the city in order to access that land, are they? They can go in and just take the land and pay the owner.
Well, I think they could probably expropriate it if they
expropriate the land. I mean, isn't that fairly commonly done?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know the province's processes, but I think they have expropriated in the past for sure.
But I think there's a process to it, though.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we need more road capacity for the traffic that's heading out through that intersection. It's not uncommon to be lined up there for 15, 20 minutes by times. And I'd also be very concerned about putting a drive-through in, because what's that going to do to traffic? And if you get somebody heading out St. Peter's Road trying to make a left-hand turn to get into their drive-through, it's just going to hold up traffic even more.
I don't think anyone's concerned from the questions I hear tonight with regards to the widening of the road. What the province is looking at doing, I think it all really boils down to what the future use of that land would be if we rezone it to MUC. That's all. That's the feeling I get, and that's certainly the feeling I have. I don't think anyone's opposed to the widening of the road and creating better traffic flow. I think it's just the future ramifications of this decision.
I guess the point I was making is that the government needs to move ahead with that using whatever mechanisms they have, and I don't think they should be pushing the city to rezone that. I mean, Alden Avenue is primarily residential, and I agree. I don't think the residents would be too happy with having a, you know, commercial business expanded into that area.
Laurel, can you tell me if there's going to be someone from the province representing, if we do put this to, or to pass this to go to a public meeting? Will there be somebody from the province representing them on this?
I would assume there would be for sure, yeah.
Okay. And what about the landowner themselves?
I don't know. I haven't been dealing with the landowner. The province has initiated this request, not Sobeys.
Okay.
But
I just got a sneaky suspicion if right people aren't there to answer the questions, that, like I said, it's just gonna go sideways.
I mean, I would assume that if this is rezoned, that Sobeys will initiate a application in the future to develop those two properties together. But we haven't had any indication of that with the current application. But it would be my thought that they would, given the past history on the property.
Okay. And comments, any other further comments, questions?
Yeah, Greg, it's Bob there. I just thought we were doing a roundabout, so I'm in conflict here, so I can't vote on this.
Sure, thank you, Bobby. I just got your text message, and I was just going to say that Bobby stated that he was in conflict on this. He owns a piece of property, I believe, fairly close on Ralden Avenue, anyway. So, Ellen, if you can mark that down, that Bob was in conflict on this, that would be great. Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions?
I don't know how you can word it right, but I think I'm kind of with you, Greg, in that I don't know how we're going to move forward without some sort of a plan to rezone anything.
Well, I'm hoping that my awesome planning staff can come up with something.
Greg, it's Alex.
Yes, Alex.
Not that I'm awesome.
You come up with something, and you are.
Right, well, it's just a suggestion. You can at this time. The province only wants to accommodate the property owner for what they're doing to them. That's why they're facilitating this, and that's not unusual. You always want to work with the property owner as opposed to use a fairly powerful tool like expropriation. So they're taking parking away from them. They have to resolve this problem. You could this evening, if you so desire, reject the request to go to MUC, but recommend that it go to parking only. Then that leaves it up to the owner of the property later. If they want to deal with something there and do drive-throughs or whatever expansions, then that will force them into rezone the parking area to MUC, and then they can be in front of you to have that discussion. But I think the province's only interest is to allow the property owner to make up for what they've lost on one area on that other property.
Okay, Alex, but rezoning to it from an R3 down to a parking, is that something that the owner of the land would want to do? I mean, I'm guessing that would hurt them, because if they were to never get a rezoning on that property again, they would be stuck basically with parking, which is not ideal either. So it's a good protection for now.
The parking zone wouldn't allow it to be developed for multi-unit residential, so it would be a down zoning from what they currently have. It's probably worth more as an R3 lot than it would be as a parking lot. So
it's still better than MUC.
What was that?
It's still better from our point of view to what Alex was saying, is to make it parking and reject the MUC application.
Do they have to rezone it though, Laurel? Can they not keep it R3? Can they just basically cut a piece of land off it?
Well, the issue is they want to put parking on it, and they're going to have an access to the Needs store off of that, because they can't do a left turn into Needs anymore. So they're going to access it from Ralden. Now, if it was left R3 and you're only dealing with access, they could just grant a right of way to themselves over that piece of property. But the parking part is an issue. They claim that they need that parking on that site.
The other option available to us, again, I'm just thinking on the fly, which is never helpful, but if you want to just defer this, and Laurel and I'll get on the phone tomorrow with the province and see, where, what they can provide to us in regard to clarity. If we just rezone it to parking, it leaves it up to the property owner. The property owner can come back and ask to change that later. For some of it to go residential, if that will work, but it's just a matter of it's too up in the air right now because there's two interests in this, and there's the provinces only got one interest, and then there's the property owner, and they're silent. We don't know what the property owner really wants out of this.
So if we were to defer to Alex till you got in for more information, and they do want this to move forward quickly, is this something that we can have a special council meeting via WebEx later this week, or even
I was going to propose that we have a meeting at noon at Thursday and then deal with it then. And we'll try to find as much information as we can. We'll explain to the province and to the property owner what we're hearing, and that we just want to make sure that when this goes forward, we don't want to send those notices out to the public unless both the province and the property owner knows the direction that the board is comfortable sending this. So we'll see if we can facilitate that.
Thursday, Alex, I'm not available, and Bob's in conflict, so we might need to look at a different day.
So, Councillor Cody, would you be available Friday or Thursday at noon?
I believe I am, Greg. I didn't check my calendar, but I don't think there's anything there.
Okay, and I guess Philip would be the only. Julie, what time can you do Thursday?
I'd be available at 1. I have a Strive, my scholarship lunch meeting at 12 o'clock, so anytime I'm available.
Okay, what about even late morning? Would everybody be available like 11 o'clock? It wouldn't take long, simply because we've pretty much hashed it out. It's just a matter of finding out what the land use could be.
And I have scholarship prize, my final prize meeting on Thursday morning. So I'm not really available till 2 o'clock on Thursday. Sorry.
Okay, Alex, we'll leave it to you guys to organize. How's that, instead of trying to figure out something tonight? But again, I think if everyone's okay with even the deferral until we get more information, again, I'm not trying to stay way through this, but if that's kind of where the board wants to go, then someone should put a motion on the floor to defer it, and then we'll deal with it in the next couple of days.
I'll move that we defer.
Okay, we'll get a motion to defer to allow planning staff to talk with both the province and the landowners for more information.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there anyone opposed? All right, hearing none, so I'm going to assume that everyone is in favor. Okay, thank you. That was a confusing one. All right, flipping on to the screens here, trying to figure out where I got to go here for the next one. So number 5, Shallon, I think you said you were in conflict with this one?
Yes, I am. Oh.
Okay. So Murchison Lane and Deacon Grove Lane, Laurel, whenever you're ready, you go ahead. And again, if everyone can mute while Laurel is speaking, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry. So this is a request to amend the future land use map from employment area on a portion of PID number 425892 and institutional on a portion of PID number 425892 and 691162 to comprehensive planning area, and to rezone the subject properties from I, institutional and business park industrial M3 to comprehensive development area. This is the area in question to be rezoned, and the development context is the subject properties are approximately 78.9 acres combined, so this and this, and they're located along Murchison Lane, Promacadian Drive, and Deacon Lane. To the north is land owned by the French Language School Board. It's zoned institutional. To the east is, and the south is the Hillsborough River. and to the west is institutional zone land containing the QE2 hospital. So the request for rezoning is to assemble the land under one zone to facilitate the construction of a new mental health and addictions acute center facility, life skills center, and a mixed-use development containing 11 to 12 acres along the northern boundary of PID 452892. So in this area, this mixed-use development. If rezoned, the existing Hillsborough Hospital would be demolished once the new hospital is constructed. The applicant has requested CDA zoning to allow for more flexibility to accommodate a mixed-use urban campus-style development, which is here, and the development is described in the master plan accompanying this report as an integrated development approach mixing urban, residential, and potential commercial uses with the hospital and social housing uses. The applicant's rationale for the rezoning request states in the past these land uses were purposefully separated, but recent social research has moved from a segregation and isolation mindset to one of social integration for these types of facilities. So the master plan contains four main components. One is a new two-story mental health and addictions acute facility, life skills center, right here. Public social safety and structured housing, 2 new buildings. And social housing, extended care housing for addictions recovery, accommodation of 12 people. And a mixed-use development up to 10 mixed-use buildings, some with ground floor retail uses, and all of them with the potential for multi-unit residential uses, and that would be in this area. So the design concept for this portion of the development is urban 4 to 6 story buildings with 3-story street wall and a 2 to 3 meter step back at the 4th story on the building front facing the street. That concept along the streetscape would be similar to a downtown concept where they're pulling the buildings close to the street frontage. So the master plan also incorporates a well-connected and integrated trail system throughout the property. And the plan takes advantage of the site's location on the Charlottetown waterfront by incorporating access to the waterfront through the development. So there will be several access along the waterfront for people to enjoy the waterfront in the coastal area. So this area, when we did the East Royalty Master Plan, was actually identified as an important connector for the trail system along the waterfront. And at that time, the East Royalty Master Plan was developed. There was an existing trail that ran along the Hillsborough Hospital property, right around this area. That trail ran along, but there was a disconnect between that portion of the trail and the provincial salt storage to the East Royalty Master Plan. So that connector will actually, when this is developed in the future, and actually the city and the province would work together on these trails, but those connectors would establish some of the goals in the East Royalty Master Plan, where we talked about the continuous connector from the waterfront, the downtown waterfront, the Eastern Gateway, and then to the neighborhood of East Royalty. The board should also be advised that 115 Murchison Lane is a designated heritage resource, and Heritage Board reviewed the proposal on May 25th. The Heritage Board would like the majority of the lands between the waterfront and the proposed new structure to be retained under the protection of the Heritage Bylaw. So Heritage Board asked for this area all along the waterfront to be protected. Province doesn't plan to develop in that area, and it's considered a floodplain and an environmental area. So they felt that that was the portion of the property that was integral to the heritage designation. So the applicants are working with the Heritage Board to accommodate the board's request. And there is one item in this development that does stand out to staff in regard to building design and orientation on the site. And we would just like to note that this is one of the last large parcels of land along the city's waterfront. It's a very prominent site that holds historical significance. It was also identified in the East Royalty Master Plan as being significant. The orientation of the new hospital, right here. It seems to turn its back on the waterfront as opposed to facing the waterfront. And parking and loading bays are located on the water side of the building. Loading bays are here. And the waterfront and coastline, within the city, it's an area that should be celebrated. That was talked about with both the waterfront plan, the Eastern Gateway, and East Royalty plan. And it's staff's opinion that the building should be oriented towards the water, and the parking and loading bays should be concealed on the west side of the building in this area. And courtyard should also be located where residents and visitors are able to enjoy the water view. So that would be our only thing that really stands out is the orientation of the hospital. When you're on the waterfront, it would be nice to see the facade of the building and then have a streetscape and then parking and loading facilities hidden on the backside. So legislative requirements. There's two processes in play with this application. And one is a rezoning application and approval of a comprehensive development plan. So both processes are similar. They require public consultation and follow a legislative process outlined in the bylaw. Both processes can be carried out simultaneously. And the processes are outlined in the planning board report if you care to look at them. The applicant has submitted a detailed master plan outlining the development concept for the site, and if council chooses to rezone the property and adopt the development concept plan for the property, a development agreement would be required. The agreement will outline the terms and conditions of the approval and how the development is to be carried out over time. In addition, individual building and site plan proposals for each development phase must be reviewed by planning board for consistency with the approved development concept plan and approved by council. So as each phase is development, if a new building comes in, it would go back to the board for review to make sure that it is in conformity with the master plan that was approved. So staff has examined the official plan, and there are various sections of the official plan that support the proposal. They are included in the report. Some of the ones that stands out is housing needs and variety. That's section 3.3 of the official plan, and health initiatives. So the province has initiated this rezoning application to replace the aging Hillsborough Hospital, and the development concept plan includes buildings and uses to address various people with special needs within the island community. And I'm just going to show you a couple of aerials of the site so you get a better idea. So the concept plan also proposes a development mix that aims to develop a mindset of social integration for these facilities, and staff feels that the proposed development concept plan meets the policies and objectives of the official plan, as well as many of the technical requirements stipulated in the bylaw. I've included a quick summary of the application's positive attributes, neutral attributes, and shortcomings within the report. And overall, planning staff feels that this is in conformity with the bylaw and the official plan, and we're recommending to council, or to the board, to recommend to council to proceed to public consultation.
All right, thank you, Laurel. Geez, you had a couple of tough ones tonight. All right, so again, this one is to go to a public meeting. Is there any questions or comments from the board? I saw this through Heritage Board, so I was quite familiar with, I think most of us saw it from the council perspective and staff, so we've kind of seen this. So any questions from the board?
It's Rosemary, and I wanted to say, Laurel, I like your idea of orientating the facility towards the waterfront, and I wonder, how do we communicate that?
Well, I can communicate that back to the consultant that I've been working with, and if that is the board's, if the board feels that that's appropriate. It's just that, you know, we looked at the plan, and I mean, it's such a beautiful site, and it holds so much significance historically. it's kind of a sin to have a building end on to the waterfront when, you know, traditionally in urban planning, it's, you know, it's appropriate to you know, celebrate the waterfront, face the building towards the waterfront, and also to provide a facade on a streetscape that, you know, integrates the building with the streetscape, especially if they're trying to create an urban design type of plan.
So my suggestion, Rosemary, if we're going to, as a board member, I'll say extend pleasantries to the developer, whoever, I would probably wait until the final recommendation is made by this board. Because again, this is go to a public meeting. There could be stuff that shows up in a public meeting, and you certainly want to be considered in favor of something prior to. So I would say if you're going to offer too many compliments on this and how great it is, I would certainly wait till after the public meeting and our next planning board. When you do make a recommendation to council, then you can speak very highly of it at that point. That would be my suggestion.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, there could be, I don't know what to see, but perhaps there are health reasons. I don't know, but it would be good just to have a bit more information about why it's oriented this particular way.
Yeah, and we can ask those questions at the public meeting when if this does make it that far, which I'm assuming it will, and then we can ask that question for sure. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, does anyone want to put a motion on the floor? Again, this is to send this application to a public meeting.
I'll move to send it to the public meeting.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. So we have a motion on the floor to move to a public meeting.
Seconded.
Thank you, Reg. So moved and seconded. Is there any further comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, so we'll see it's unanimous in favor. Perfect. All right, that was a big part of our document, wasn't it? As I'm scrolling down trying to find the next one. All right, Shallon, are you still with us? Because you're allowed back in.
I'm here.
Okay. Out of detention and back in. All right, so we're moving on to number 6, which is 18 Traynor Street. And Laurel, you have that one as well. So whenever it has been a busy month for you.
Okay, I believe this was before the board last year, but this is an application under section 45.34A of the bylaw to consolidate a portion of PID number 388199 with PID number 898873 and subdivide into 2 lots. This is the subject property, and they're looking to take this piece up the back and consolidate it and then re-subdivide. So this is proposed development plan. So the request is for 1 lot, if consolidated, would be 32,000 square feet, and the second lot would be 54,756 square feet, as shown on this site plan. So 32,000 here and 54,756 here. The property is zoned highway commercial, which permits apartment buildings and townhouses, and the request is to assemble the land to construct 3 mixed-use buildings with a combination of townhouses and apartment units in each building, having 20 units per building. All 3 buildings combined will have a total of 60 units. And just to give you an idea, this is the proposal. So in 2019, there was a proposal which consisted of 2 one-acre lots with 35-unit apartment buildings on each lot for a total of 70 units. On parcel 8889873, there's currently a single detached dwelling. I'm just going to flip back to the map. So the single detached dwelling is here, and both properties have frontage on Traynor Street and Katy Drive. And PID number 388199 has frontage on both Traynor Street and Malpeck Road. So this property has frontage on Malpeck and Traynor, and this one on Katy and trainer. So C2 zone allows for a variety of commercial uses which may not be compatible with low-density residential neighborhoods such as Katy Drive and Trainer Street. In planning, multi-unit residential is generally not located immediately adjacent to low-density residential buildings. However, the board should consider that the land is zoned highway commercial, which allows for a variety of commercial uses. Flip. And these uses are considered as of right and could be less compatible with the neighborhood than multi-unit residential. So multi-unit residential, it does generate less traffic than commercial, and it's more compatible with low-density residential uses than commercial uses. Apartment and townhouse buildings would provide a step zoning approach and a buffer between low-density units and more intensive commercial uses that are permitted in the highway commercial zone. And these uses could be constructed on the balance of the property fronting on Malpeque Road in the future. In 2019, when the application was submitted for 2 apartment buildings, staff had concerns that traffic generated by the proposed development may have an impact on the local neighborhood streets. So it's all, this area is mainly just local streets within a low-density subdivision, and then we do have this one that goes out to Irwin Drive onto Malpeque Road. So since we had those concerns, and Katy Drive and Trainer Street, they've benefited from traffic generated only from the subdivision and the commercial cottage development in the past. The property has frontage on Malpeque Road, and staff suggested that access for the apartment building should be onto Malpeque Road by the dedication of a right-of-way. The applicants were not able to obtain access onto Malpeque Road through the development, and with Malpeque Road being an arterial road, access for residential development was not considered safe as it would be onto a local street. Therefore, they redesigned the proposal and resubmitted the current application, which has a total of 60 units with a combination of townhouse units and apartment buildings in each building. So if you look at this, the bottom level would be townhouses, and then the apartments would sit on the levels above, the 2 levels above. The city required the applicant to commission a traffic study to determine how much traffic may be generated from the 3 buildings and its effects on the local streets and subdivision accesses. And the traffic study determined that the street network has adequate capacity to accommodate the proposed development. The traffic study was reviewed by City Public Works Department, the manager of Public Works, and that department concurred with the traffic consultant's opinion. Should also note that section 4.703, landscaped open space of the bylaw, requires that a 13-foot buffer be provided along property boundaries between a commercial or multi-unit apartment building and low-density residential zones. So staff can require a buffer in that area, so right in this area. And here, so it would be along the west property boundary of the proposed development backing onto any of those R1 lots. In this scenario, the 13-foot buffer and multi-unit residential would provide a good transition between the low-density residential neighborhood and the C2 high commercial zone uses. There's also other commercial institutional uses that currently back onto the R zone lots on Trainer Street, such as Andrews Lodge, which is right here. It's a large nursing home, and but I should let you know that access from this development is onto Malpeque Road. The bulk and scale of Andrews Lodge also would be much larger than the proposed townhouse buildings. They're broken up into 3 buildings, and wouldn't be as high. Various policies in the official plan support a range of housing options for residents of Charlottetown, and they're listed in the report. And this property is located in the highway commercial zone. Therefore, that lot consolidation would require council's approval. So the purpose of this is staff is advancing the application to the board based on the requirements of section 10.34A of the zoning and development bylaw. So we've provided a list of attributes, positives and shortcomings within the report, and they're there for your review. But overall, staff is encouraging planning board to recommend for approval of this and consolidation, subject to a development agreement. And the development agreement would outline the conditions of the development, the proposed tree buffer provided along the west property boundary. But that buffer would exempt out the access point along Katy Drive, excuse me, and Trainer Street.
All right. Thank you, Laurel. Is there any questions from the board?
Yeah, could I just ask one there, Chair?
Yeah, Councillor Ron.
What would be the difference of this? Like, this is a major development within a residential area. This would be something like a Brackley Point Road or a Pine Drive development, where we're going right in the middle of like an R1 type residential development. Like it just seems like it's a major development for that. What would be the difference between that and those other places? Could you explain that to me?
Well, this is currently zoned commercial, so they could develop there is one lot already that they can already develop an apartment building or the townhouse apartment building combination on. They're looking to take this piece in. This property has commercial zoning. They could come in and essentially they could demolish these cottages and build anything that's located within that commercial zone on that property, or this property for that matter. We requested the traffic study, and we feel that the traffic study addressed the concerns. It's not going to impact that local road network. A lot of the traffic will come in and go down Irwin Drive and then onto Malpac Road. And with this type of development where you've got a intensive commercial use, you know, how this property could be developed with an intensive commercial use. If you were to develop multi-unit residential, you're actually buffering the lower density neighborhood from a more intensive commercial use, which could, as of right, occur in this property.
Laurel, can I follow up on Bob's question? So I know that you had indicated that they can put apartment complexes in behind as well at some point. So could this be a case of putting, you know, the three that they're currently requesting now up front, and then at some point over the next coming years, remove the cottages and really densify that field as well? So I mean, looking at, I mean, again, without a ruler, if they're putting in 120 or 60 potential units in down here, they can probably put another 100 quite easily in the other part if they so determine at a later date. Is that,
This whole property could be redeveloped either commercially or residentially, multi-unit residential or an intensive commercial use. For example, you could have a box store move in here, and then you've got access either here or here. So, I mean, it's multi-unit residential on this part of the development would actually provide a buffer between this neighborhood and this area if it were to develop with a more intensive use. Plus, it would also restrict, by developing this, it would also restrict the land size on this part of the property for more intensive commercial uses. So you may end up with commercial uses, but maybe not as intensive as what could have occurred there.
Greg, it's Alex. I just thought I would mention that that front property is there's restrictions on it from the province. So whatever intensification happens there, they do need to get the blessing of the province, but whatever access is occurring out there. I just thought I'd clarify that.
Does anyone know when the zoning of that took place? Was the residential area zoned residential prior to this commercial piece?
No, I believe that commercial piece was there long before that neighborhood because
Okay.
those cottages have been there for years.
Okay. No, I just have to assume that the residents of that area are going to be shocked with 3 buildings plus potential commercial. Not saying that it's wrong. I think the development looks good. It's just, again, the shock factor. And again, to Councillor Duran's question, what's the difference between the heavy density so close to residential versus what we dealt with through Brackley and what we're about to deal with the Pine Drive? I can see a lot of similarities.
I agree there is, but you're dealing with an area that, it's located on the bypass, it's on Malpeque Road, you've got a low-density subdivision that's, along the bypass and tucked in behind Malpeque Road. There's a lot of, if you look around that zoning map, you've got a lot of commercial uses, you've got some industrial uses, you've got CDA, and then you've got this little low-density neighborhood tucked in behind. So, when this was developed, these uses were here. So it's kind of, there's definitely probably going to be concern from the neighborhood. But staff's opinion is this could be developed a lot more intensive than what they're proposing right now. If that were to go, commercial, you could put, it could be a box store, it could be a strip mall, it could be anything. We actually had an application on this property a few years back for a car dealership. And because of access, that was denied by the province for the car dealership. And I believe it was denied at that time because upgrades had to be completed to the road, but I think the province has upgraded the road since. So if it was in current time, it probably would have been approved.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor Cody.
Thank you. Well, I'm just wondering why they weren't able to get access onto Malpeque Road when there's a road there now. That's how you get in and out of that little cottage development. Why can't they just use that road onto Malpeque Road instead of rerouting all this traffic through the subdivision?
Well, I think it's a combination of it's a different property owner through the cottages, and I think there might have also been what was indicated to me, concerns from the province as far as access.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you're gonna build the buildings, come out onto Traynor, and then you're gonna have to exit onto Irwin Drive on Malpeque Road. So you're getting on Malpeque Road anyway. So what difference would it make if you went and used the cottage road that has access?
Because Irwin Drive is a actual road that's it's not signalized, but it has a stop sign. It's whereas the cottage development would essentially just be a driveway, and its location to the intersection with the bypass.
I guess I just have a hard time believing that you're saying this is a buffer to a more intense development if there was a box store to move in. Surely traffic from the box store would not be rerouted through a subdivision. They'd find access onto the highway at some point.
Well, we would hope so, but you're still dealing with a more intensive use that could back onto a residential neighborhood. So, it's the same thing with, the other application where you could potentially have a Tim Hortons right up against a residential property, where in this instance you would have residential abutting residential and then commercial abutting more multi-unit residential, as opposed to commercial right up against a low-density residential neighborhood.
And I can appreciate that, and certainly you don't want commercial up against a residential neighborhood. I'm trying to figure out a way how you would keep the traffic from this new subdivision going into an established one.
Really, it's a residential use going into a residential neighborhood. I mean, there was a traffic analysis done, and those streets can accommodate an additional 70 units. It just, to me, it makes sense to take the safer access for residential development into a residential neighborhood as opposed to funneling a residential development onto an arterial highway.
It's going to have a major impact on that subdivision. I know people cut through that subdivision now to go from Malpeck Road to Lower Malpeck Road. There's an awful lot of traffic in that subdivision. I don't know how hard the applicant or whoever's submitting this application, how hard they tried to try and get access onto Malpeck Road so you don't have to go through the subdivision only to get on Irwin Drive and try and get onto a busy road then too.
Well, my opinion is I think it's safer for that development to go on to Irwin Drive where it is an actual road intersection as opposed to funneling through a cottage development with a driveway onto an arterial highway with its location to the bypass highway. Because I mean, you're almost at the intersection of the bypass. I would think, and I mean, I'm no traffic consultant, but I would think that if a major development occurred in this area, they would probably restrict the access in to that development, or they would maybe put signalized lights or something.
Yeah, and maybe if you could leave this new development and just turn right onto Malpeck Road using that cottage lane or road, it would lessen some traffic in that neighborhood. I don't know. I'm just wondering if all the options were explored here, because this is going to be very problematic.
So, Councillor Cody, it's Greg here. So, I mean, you're the council that represents the area. Do you see the traffic being the big hiccup, or do you see the actual buildings themselves being problematic? I mean, if the traffic was to find a way to be rerouted, do you think that the residents in the area would be much more accepting of?
I think it'd be a lot more tolerable, Greg, only because they're not asking for a rezoning. The property is zoned and they're allowed to develop it, so that's not an option. It's the intensity of the traffic that's going to be going through that established neighborhood now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Jason, do you have any follow-up?
No, that's okay. Laurel answered my questions.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
There's so much information. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to follow all this tonight via computer. So they're going to leave those cottages in front of these three buildings, correct?
I asked that question, and the cottage owner at this time apparently wants to continue running the cottage business. Now, whether he will sell it in the future, I would assume he probably would, because I mean, I would say it's a very valuable lot, high-profile lot, but at this time, he indicated that he's not interested in selling the cottage development.
I think that's an awful weird. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board? All right. Does anyone want to put a motion on the floor? So just to reiterate, Don's recommendation is to accept. Is that correct? To recommend approval of the lot consolidation subject to a development agreement outlining the conditions of the development as proposed. Okay, read buffered.
So this doesn't have to go to a public meeting?
No.
No, it doesn't. It requires council's approval for the lot consolidation.
All right. Anyone want to throw their motion in on the floor? And get it to a vote of some sort?
I had the tricky ones this month.
You did, but we just need to get a motion on the floor, like I said, and then figure out where we want to go from there.
It's Basil.
Basil.
One question.
Yes.
Question. Are they separate property owners between the cottages and what the new development is? My understanding was the same property owner at one point in time.
The same property owner owns all of this right now, but there is a new, there's a potential buyer for this piece, and so the buyer wants this whole back end of the property for that particular development.
Okay.
Well, sorry, correct.
No, go ahead, Jason. I was just going to ask the questions. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was just going to say, and I guess that goes back to my point. I'm just curious on how hard this was explored. Like if I'm buying a piece of property off somebody to develop it, maybe I can work with him to access it off of Malpeck Road, as opposed to, like, to say they're the same. They're two different landowners. There's going to be a business deal here, I would say, at some point in time. There's, to see if we can work something out that the traffic doesn't have to go through this subdivision.
I see what you're saying, but my question would be: is it appropriate to put, in the interest of safety, which is the safest, to put a residential development out onto the highway near that busy intersection, or to have a residential development drive through a residential subdivision out to an intersection that's developed road?
And I understand what you're saying, Lowell. I guess what I'm saying is, you're going to come into the subdivision, you're only going to go down to Irwin Drive to try and get onto the street. You're going to get onto the same street. So whether you get on through the cottage lot or you get on through Irwin Drive, you're still going to try and get onto that street. I realize what you're saying, that it's a little closer to the lights at the old Sears intersection. But nevertheless, I don't know if it's far enough down from that intersection that you can enter and exit. But like I say, you're getting onto the same road, only at two different points. One, you're just eliminating traffic through the subdivision.
Yes, you are getting onto the same road, but you're moving that access. You're funneling that development down to an actual road as opposed to a driveway near an arterial highway. So I guess that was the reason why we requested the traffic study, and the traffic study looked at the road network and felt that it was able to accommodate it. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm just reporting what the traffic assessment said.
All right. Any other questions or comments? So if someone wants to put a motion on the floor, either way, what I'll do is I'll do this a little differently. This may be a closer vote, so I'll probably end up going through and calling each individual just to make sure that we get your vote right. So we do need a motion on the floor to either accept staff's recommendation or to reject it. Nice outside. Someone should get a motion forward.
Staff recommendation.
Okay, so Chris, are you moving? Okay, yep. To accept staff's recommendation. Okay, so we have a mover. Do we have anyone to second the motion?
I'll second it, Bobby.
Okay, Bobby, thank you. So we have a motion to accept staff's recommendation. It's been seconded. All right, so we're going to put this to a vote. And again, like I said, I think it. Anyways, I'll just go, if you guys don't mind, if we can go through individually, I'll just call your name to say if you're in favor or not, okay? So we'll start with councillors. Councillor Bob Duran, are you in favor or against?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor McCabe?
I'm against.
Okay. Councillor Cody?
Against.
Okay, thank you. We have Bobby? Bobby, you're... I couldn't catch you there.
In favor.
Okay, in favor, sorry, thank you. Shallon?
Against.
Okay, Rosemary? Rosemary, you there? So, okay, Rosemary, are you there?
Yep.
You in favor or against?
In favor.
Reg?
Against.
Basil?
I'm against.
Okay, Chris?
Favor.
Okay, and did I miss anybody? The mayor's in the meeting. He's not here.
Nope, I just came back in again.
Okay, you're back in. Okay, all right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the motion is defeated 7-3. So that'll be the recommendation of council to reject 7-3. All right. Thank you. Moving on to number 7, which is Regis Duffy Drive. And Greg, you are here to tell us that you're fixing the smell from the marijuana plant. Right, Greg?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, this might be a little less controversial than that, maybe. I got an application here to validate 2 properties in the Bio Commons. It is for the existing building that is located there. It is a Dose Can, Cannabis Solutions. So they're currently located at 11 Regis Duffy. They're looking to take over the adjacent property. Most properties are in the Business Park Industrial M3 zone. Yes, there was an addition recently proposed for Dose Can on the existing property. And they received an interior fit-up permit in September 2019, so I believe that work's ongoing. But should this consolidation be approved, they would be looking to expand further onto the adjacent property, but no plans have been submitted to date. The consolidation, I guess, in the Biocommons Industrial Park is not uncommon. As you're aware, the marijuana facility across the street had quite a large consolidation of multiple properties, and there's a couple others that did go through the same consolidation process. At one point, there was a development agreement and restrictive covenants on the properties, the whole park, but that was removed in 2017, I believe, when the Canada's Island Garden was consolidated. So the consolidation, I guess, in general is pretty straightforward. I think if the restrictive covenants and development agreement was in place still, they would be more contentious about what was happening in the park. But right now, should it be consolidated, they'd have to meet the requirements of the M3 zone, which is typically industrial uses. It backs on the Upton farmland, and everything else in the park is industrial. So staff are recommending for the consolidation.
So Greg, I'm going to have to ask the question. So what exactly does this company do? Because the last lot consolidation has led to a lot of problems for me in that area because it was never expected to grow as quickly as it grew. So what is this going to have any unintended consequences or is this
honestly, I'm
standard?
Not an expert in Dose Can business model, but from my understanding, they are involved in the marijuana facility, but it's the CBD oil, not the growing of plants, if I'm not mistaken. So they've been operating the same way. They were one of the first buildings in that park, if I'm not mistaken. So they've been operating the same way since then. I don't think you'd ever notice anything from it, but again, I don't think you have the same impact that Canada's Island Garden would. But again, I'm not an expert.
And Mr. Chair.
Yes, Your Worship.
It is an extraction plant, so it doesn't. It won't have the same effect as their neighbors across the street. Plus, I know that the HVAC system that went in there, I think they put in about 5 to 7 chillers, and also to mitigate or reduce the odor issue if there will be any.
Well, Your Worship, I'm well aware of that, and yes, I understand they put those mechanical piece is in, but I can tell you right now that it hasn't solved the problem. It has helped, but it has not solved. I've still received numerous complaints over the last couple of weeks, so it is still an issue. But one that I continue to follow up with the plant, so that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
But certainly not gone. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Good.
Comments, questions, motions? Anything? Anyone want to put a motion forward? Staff's recommendation is to recommend to approve the lot consolidation. Anyone?
Greg, it's Sharon here. I will recommend that we accept staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Shallon. So we have a motion to accept. Do we have anyone to second?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, hearing none, so unanimous in favor. All right, thank you. So we're moving on to 123 Grafton Street. Greg, you're back up, and this is the last one for the evening.
Yeah, and I apologize if it's the most controversial one, but the applicants are looking to renew an encroachment agreement for an outdoor patio at the Redwater Rustic Grill. So the patio has been there since I can remember. I can give you the exact date. I think 2014 maybe. And it essentially encroaches 6 feet with 7 tables, 28 chairs, and essentially the applicant is looking to renew it until the end of the 2024 season. But I guess one little thing I want to note, staff are obviously recommending for the patio. We haven't received any kind of opposition to it in the 6 years that I can remember. But back in 2005, the planning board or council approved a resolution that basically said that encroachment agreements can be handled by staff and don't need to go to planning board and council. That being said, when the planning department dealt with the bylaw for outdoor patios, they were required to go through the encroachment agreement process. So this is one of them that continues to go through encroachment agreements, even though that resolution took place. So staff are recommending that council approve this encroachment agreement, but also put in the resolution that staff will deal with the renewal of this item in future years, so you don't have to see the Redwater Rustic Grill again. If there's a couple more that will have to go to the board at some point, and staff would be putting the same recommendation in, just so this will be the last year we have to deal with them, just to clean it up and make it formal that staff will deal with them from now on.
Good. Good.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
A patio is already set up in front of the Grand Hotel.
Okay.
It's already in place. And Greg?
Yes.
There's a patio that was put out in front of the restaurant, Soul Restaurant. That's on University Avenue in a parking lot. Did that go through planning?
I don't know off the top of my head. It may have. If you want to send me the address, we could kind of follow up and see. But the one why this one would be, I guess, unique is that it is in the right of way. So if it was in the parking lot on its own, then you guys wouldn't see it. But I'm not sure if we have a permit for it or not.
I'll get to the information.
See, Greg doesn't like the healthy food as much. If you would have said it's next to Jack's Pizza, he knows exactly where it is.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sushi restaurant.
All right, this is a pretty easy one, I think. I think Greg was being sarcastic at first.
No.
All right. Anyone want to put a motion forward?
I'll move that we accept staff's recommendation.
I
And to add the amendment as well, that little piece to allow them to deal with this encroachment in the future. Okay, perfect. All right, moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Hearing none. Motion is carried. All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Alex, how do you want to handle the next piece? We got a committee meeting. Do we all hang